Today, at 4:17 a.m. local time, 8 Ukrainian long-range drones were reported flying through a Russian river valley at approximately 200 meters altitude. They emitted no GPS and no radar, instead using barometric sensors and preloaded terrain data to hold height over ground. For the last 50 kilometers, the navigation profile had worked as planned. The routing and aim points suggest a fuel and pipeline complex as the objective. The spacing of the drones and their emission discipline indicated a design to minimize early detection and preserve surprise for the terminal phase. Minutes later, the air picture changed unexpectedly, and Mi-24 Hind, on an unscheduled patrol, detected engine noise and turned into the valley with weapons ready. At nearly the same moment, 2 Ukrainian R-360 Neptune missiles launched on separated flight paths. The timing suggests a deception plan. Pull Russian search radars and operator attention toward high-signature missiles, while the low-signature drones advanced. The first Neptune climbed to roughly 15,000 feet and presented a radar cross-section closer to a small aircraft than a low observable cruise missile. There was no pretense of stealth, only an invitation to be seen and engaged. Russian S-400 operators, following doctrine, locked and fired at the salient high-altitude threat. Although the system can track many targets, operators typically prioritize the most salient missile first. This step shaped the defense's priorities, so the main effort, the low drones, could move through a thinner seam. Meanwhile, the lead drone continued along the river at 200 meters, cross-checking a barometric altimeter against stored terrain at short intervals. 7 drones followed at staggered distance to avoid forming a single composite radar return. When Drone 5 detected power lines 200 meters ahead, it executed a programmed microclimb, cleared by a narrow margin, and dropped back into contour. The trailing aircraft mirrored the path. Each evasive action cost speed and climb margin, but it preserved the formation's signature control. The second Neptune missile dropped to around 15 meters and sped up to about 900 kilometers per h, using its radar altimeter near minimum safe thresholds for intermittent visibility. This tactic was designed to briefly trigger alarms before disappearing. Drone 1 detected the passing missile 2 kilometers south. This missile acted as a decoy, diverting Russian sensors while quieter threats continued. The S-400's engagement on the high Neptune was textbook. 2 interceptors launched, pulling heavy G, and destroyed the target 8 seconds later at 15,000 feet, confirmed as a clean kill. Attention then shifted to the second Neptune, hidden by terrain, masking, and the Earth's curvature below the radar horizon, appearing briefly in pop-ups. This routine of appearing, alarming, and vanishing occupied tracking channels and operator attention, diverting focus from the accumulating low-altitude threat. The effect was a kick-the-door tactic. Decoy forward, main effort low. The second Neptune hit the front door, while drones targeted side windows. Drone 2 saw 3 BTR armored carriers on the M3, but kept going. A soldier stepping away from a vehicle heard the lawnmower buzz and radioed a contact report. Within 30 seconds, Sector Command was triangulating reports, estimating 8 low-flying contacts heading toward a pipeline station. The drones split into pre-programmed evasion patterns. Drones 6-8 bent north along a railroad. Drones 3-5 pressed deeper into the valley. Drones 1-2 stayed higher and more visible to carry the decoy burden. Drone 4's infrared feed flared white with turbine heat from an approaching Mi-24. Kinematics were simple: helicopter near 280, drones near 150, intercept in 3.7 minutes. Mission timer showed 9 minutes to target. The timeline forced both sides to accept risk, one to close and kill, the other to endure long enough to arrive. The second Neptune sharply ascended to 5,000 feet, about 10 kilometers from the fuel node. Radars reacquired it, triggering alarms across commands. The climb was illogical for a direct strike, but perfect for provoking a point defense response at a critical moment. The first Mi-24 arrived overhead, crewed by a pilot with Afghan training and a less experienced gunner. At dawn, with limited thermal aids, they relied on optics, poor conditions for tracking small, fast targets. The Mi-24 Corps' 12.7 mm Yak-B Gatling opened fire. High rate of fire did not overcome the lead problem at that range. A suitcase-sized drone crossed the reticle faster than the turret could slew and stabilize. Low contrast and shifting range made lead estimation difficult. After extended bursts, 3 rounds struck Drone 2 around center fuselage. Telemetry ceased instantly, and wreckage fell into a field. The exchange underlined a constant. Against small, low-contrast targets at first light, angular lead and steady cues matter more than raw rate of fire. Drones 3-5 advanced when Drone 3's camera revealed a low bridge, too sudden to bypass and too low to underfly. All 3 executed emergency climbs, breaking terrain masking at the worst point. The helicopter switched to S-880 unguided rockets. Those rockets are designed to suppress areas, not to pick off micro-targets, but a ripple can compensate for poor sightlines. A short burst destroyed Drone 4 outright and shredded Drone 5's left wing, forcing it into the river. Drone 3 cleared the bridge and dropped back to masking altitude. Rotor diameter and safety margins prevented the helicopter from pressing into those narrower corridors. The second Neptune continued its hide-and-seek routine. At around 8 kilometers from the site, it climbed to about 3,000 feet, presenting a clean problem to point defense. A Pantsir S-1 battery commander took the shot. 4 57E6 missiles rippled. 1 would normally suffice, but redundancy avoided embarrassment. Overlapping detonations produced a sustained fireball. Defenders scored a second kill and experienced a surge of confidence. Attention, however, fixed on the southern glow as another approach vector matured from the north. From that northern axis, drones 6, 7, and 8 followed the railroad at about 50 meters altitude, still undetected by units oriented south. A second Mi-24 rose from behind the trees at 2 kilometers. This crew adopted a smarter sensor choice, cutting visible searchlights and using infrared to spot warm drone motors against cooling ground. Controlled bursts, rather than spray patterns, brought hits on Drone 6. Fluid leaked, control lines degraded, and altitude bled away. Drone 7's random heading evasion failed to shake the following helicopter, leaving Drone 8's straight path unopposed. The first Mi-24, chasing Drone 3, was low on ammo, 300 rounds, and frustrated. Poor radio deconfliction hindered helicopter coordination. A flare only lit empty forest. Simple countermeasures against small drones proved ineffective, wasting ammunition and time. On the rooftops around the pipeline station, Russian soldiers deployed Igla-S man-portable air defense systems. The Igla-S uses a dual-band infrared seeker and proximity fuse, and is effective against jets and helicopters, whose exhaust plumes run hundreds of degrees above ambient. Against small piston engines, thermal contrast can fall near seeker thresholds. The first shooter swept for a lock and found none. He fired, and the missile launched cleanly, then went ballistic when it had nothing to track. 2 more teams repeated the sequence with the same outcome. The systems worked as designed. These small, cool engines sat near seeker thresholds. 1 Igla-S shot achieved a proximity effect. The fuse sensed a pass within lethal radius and detonated. Drone 8's starboard wing took tungsten fragments. Asymmetric drag and reduced lift emerged immediately. The controller tried to compensate with rudder and throttle, but holes in lifting surfaces are a structural problem software cannot fully overcome. The drone wobbled towards the tank area. It had lost precision, but momentum and direction still threatened the facility. Amid rooftop fire and helicopter hunting, Drone 1, flying the obvious profile, reached the main transformer substation. Its onboard classifier matched the heat and form of high-value electrical infrastructure, and the warhead armed. Perimeter Zu-23 guns opened at sound, working with iron sights and marginal night aids. The ZSU-23-4 Shilka radar unit struggled to track slow, low-signature objects that older processing often filters as clutter. Manual mode offered little advantage at low elevation and short time of flight. Under these conditions, the small attacker held the edge over legacy gun systems. Drone 6 hit the pumping substation at about 180 km per h. Its warhead weighed about 20 kilograms that breached the roof, detonating among pumps and manifolds. The resulting shockwave ruptured pipes, and the sprayed petroleum vaporized and ignited. Drone 3, inbound from the east, suffered total control failure after a Zu-23 gunner landed hits on its tail. With 8 seconds to impact, it struck the control building, destroying instrumentation for valve and emergency shutoff management, causing a simultaneous loss of measurement and actuation. With the control building gone, petroleum kept flowing when it should have stopped. Pressure rose in sections not designed for uncontrolled feed. Drone 7 reached Tank 2, climbed to trade speed for altitude, then executed a near-vertical dive to maximize the chance of penetrating top plating. Drone 8, heavily damaged, drifted toward Tank 3 at low height. Its battery died within 50 meters, but the glide carried it into the tank's base. Precision was no longer essential. Cumulative damage and continued flow had already set conditions for cascading failure across the farm. The result, per Ukrainian sources, pending confirmation and consistent with industrial physics, was a BLEVE, a boiling liquid expanding vapor explosion. Rapid phase change expanded volume dramatically and drove an overpressure wave beyond the structural limits of adjacent tanks. The blast front ruptured neighboring vessels, panels tore away, and ignition points multiplied. In seconds, the site went from contained fires to a facility-wide, destructive event. The pipeline node, transformer yard, and control building sustained critical damage. The Ukrainian strategy involved layered planning, using high-signature decoys to prompt radar use and waste interceptors, splitting formations to complicate tracking, exploiting gaps in helicopter deconfliction, and targeting control nodes for disproportionate impact. Russia's defenders, despite downing 2 Neptunes and 3 drones, were hampered by sensor fixation, poor radio coordination between helicopters, and using outdated guns and heat seekers against cool, slow drones, resulting in tactical wins but strategic issues. The attack, which disabled a fuel and pipeline node, created a costly asymmetry favoring the attacker. While long-range improvised drones cost tens to low hundreds of thousands of USD, typical, the replacement of destroyed control systems, transformers, pumps, and tanks is capital-intensive and time-consuming, potentially costing millions per component. A drone wave costing hundreds of thousands of dollars can inflict 9-figure losses, creating a steep imbalance in cost, time, and attention. High-end systems like S-400 and Pantsir S-1, effective against fast, high-altitude threats, were easily decoyed. Manpads pose a threat via proximity, but struggle to consistently lock onto small piston engines. Effective defense likely requires short-range, rapid-slew guns with modern optics, wider aperture IR search, and coordinated air-to-air tactics. By first light, drones 1, 3, 6, 7, and 8 had executed enough of the plan to disable core site functions. Drones 2, 4, and 5 were destroyed en route. Both Neptunes were intercepted, a fact Russian reporting will emphasize. Ukrainian narratives will stress the asymmetric cost and the cascading failure. The visible evidence, burned tanks, a damaged control building, ruptured piping, demonstrated the practical outcome: disrupted flow, expensive repairs, and diverted resources. In the aftermath, investigators will parse telemetry fragments, air defense logs, and blast patterns to refine sequence and causality. Commanders will review radio records to understand how 2 helicopters hunted on different frequencies. Procurement staffs will weigh the price of tailored short-range counter-UAS systems against the bill for restoring tanks, substations, and control rooms. Strategists on both sides will update doctrine around signature control, coordinated deception, and sensor fusion at low altitude. Today's strike, if confirmed in full detail, illustrates a central reality of the war. Small autonomous systems, disciplined signatures, and timed deception can impose outsized costs on high-value infrastructure. The question ahead is straightforward and urgent. Will defenders integrate drone-specific layers fast enough to close this window? Or will attackers keep finding seams to split attention and cripple critical fuel nodes again?